Hello and welcome back to our programme looking at Dr Ranson and what has been happening in the last week. It's been quite interesting. It's been a lot of newspaper columns have been written, including, of course, The Guardian have written up quite a thing. I mean, that's going to haunt some people because it's one thing being in just, on my newspapers. I'm not putting them down, but, they'll be seen in one level. But when you see it in a national press, that could be quite serious.
Yeah, well, we've got the president of the ABMA coming over tomorrow.
That's right.
He's here today, I think.
Yeah,
and
the media
conference tomorrow. But I thought we were going to start with the...
just talk about he's doing the rounds. He's been on the radio today, and again, I've listened back to that. Okay.
Chris is desperate to start.
I feel very strongly about this. I mean, I was giving what was being said to some degree on Tuesday the benefit of the doubt. I lost the confidence listening to the Chief Minister this morning. It was awful. What he was at, if you think about, if you step back from what he said, he was saying, there was a conflict between Catherine Magson and Roslyn Ranson, and it was exceptional circumstances about COVID, and he even went on to say, well, there was a loss of focus because of an election. And there were these, that's what he said.
I know, but it was irrelevant, I think, the timing of that.
Well, no,
I can't remember. But
I think the questions were quite pertinent that were being offered, but it was, but let's go on to this new higher sunlit pastures and let's leave this behind. That's an organisation beginning to want to shovel it all away. And it left me despondent, perhaps more depressed than I've been right the way through this whole episode. The idea that the advice now coming from the officers to the Chief Minister is, well, we can get through this, we can get by this. It's a storm in a teacup.
You do wonder who's getting advice from to make these sort of directions, because it was very much, let's move on, wasn't it? That's the impression.
So definitely, I think the word that is just the word for the morning is deflection. It was just totally deflecting what was going on. But don't worry, it's your point. But don't worry, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. We're implementing X, Y, Z, and everything will change. It'll be okay. And just as a precursor, don't worry, we probably will see other tribunals. Just to let you know. I mean, those are that's a big all. There are obviously no more's coming. That's going to.
There is. I'm getting contacted all the time by people now who've got similar things, as if I'm meant to be able to sort things out. But it's lovely that people get in touch.
I think there's an important thing to say about this, that you cannot say there's a lot more things coming along the line, or what was the phrase itself? Oh, well, you're bound to get this sort of thing.
You won't not get tribunals in a size organisation that we'll get.
Yeah, but the point completely and utterly missed there is the only reason this particular tribunal has come, as it were, to full presentation of how awful things were, is because the money was there for Roslyn Ranson, because they recognised what a credible medical director she was and was deserving of support. So the idea that, there's more tribunals to come and we have to accept that, is blatant complacency. I mean, it scared the hell out of me. I'm despondent at the moment. There really has to be a complete change of mind, and I don't see it coming. They're scurrying off again. Oh, I really am.
I'm sorry, I can't give Chris any hope. I think a lot of us feel the same, and it's really disappointing that this is being brushed under the carpet. But I have to say, I do hope, the one hope I can possibly give him is I do hope that we can help him, guide him, as a parliament to do what's right. But it's only if his door's open and only if he wants to. And this point about the Council of Ministers, because he does refer to them, that the decisions are being made as a Council of Ministers as well. And I think that's really important to know, this collective responsibility and things. they're all tied in, and I'd love to know, do they all feel that this is travelling in the right path, that it should be? Do they all, you know, is there some that don't feel that what's happening right now is right? And I'd love to know that, and we won't ever know that, and that's what's bad about this system, you know.
How removed we are from reality over all of this, to my mind, was personified by the Lib Vannin statement made, was it yesterday or this morning?
Exactly the night before.
And it talked about Lib Vannin being appalled, and that we need more open and accountable processes. And I'm thinking, hang on a second. One of the people who really mishandled themselves to a huge degree was Laurie Hooper. And I'm thinking, I can't correlate Laurie Hooper's position with what his party is saying.
It's interesting thought that.
They are absolutely at odds with each other. And I don't know how in Laurie's mind he can put it all together. He knew all about everything. And I'm not going to go there again because previous interviews have dealt with this in detail.
Well, you asked him thought he may have to go at one stage. I remember you saying that in one of our interviews. I don't know which bit tipped him over the edge.
Probably more than one. But I knew what Laurie knew. I fully expected him to respond to all the things that he knew, and he didn't. He just shrugged his shoulders and walked away from it. And his party, presumably...
Why? Because it's operational. That was always the line, and is always the line that you hear from ministers. It's operational. It's nothing to do with me. And that's therein lies the problem, because they will always have that de facto get out of jail clause.
They're not fulfilling the role as a minister properly. But then I've dealt with that with Laurie. But I was astonished. I mean, what's wrong with Lib Vannin that they can't correlate the action of their minister with what they're saying?
So I have a theory on that. My theory is we all saw the Lib Vannin the night before, and we thought, oh, we go. Here's a precursor to what's coming in the Chief Minister's speech. You know, that it was along the same lines of, you know, expect apology, things need to be done, blah, 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 blah.
Well, people have been piling in with... the Labour Party came out once as well, didn't they? They're also showing their interest in the story now, because we can talk about it without being... I mean, you must be so annoyed every time they throw sub judice at you.
It's interesting, because I'm hearing that now, you know, I'm no lawyer or have that expertise, but we're hearing now, because of the way that standing orders have changed, that actually it's because of that actually we're now held to not being able to speak. It's not actually what the word sub judice means, or the terminology actually means, and this is obviously being driven by the AGs. All the advice that we've had on sub judice has been from the AGs. So standing orders has very much changed, and it's going to take another big change come in May. Tynwald, I don't know if you've seen that, Chris. There's another big change coming towards of that, and it's
changing the rules.
It's tightening up the standing orders around sub judice, and it's
for better or worse. Do you think, though? Do you understand what they're going to do?
For worse, in the sense
you have less wriggle room.
Less wriggle room. It's really worrying, because, as I say, the people who are advising what is changing, or what has changed, or what is in standing orders currently right now, are the people that have had this aggressive hand, you know, to
I mean, the issue
to not letting us speak, and you know, and that's really worrying. And we don't have this special advice. We don't have anywhere else to go.
Well, you know what I've said about that.
We can get. We should have, as political members, independent legal advice.
You should. It's impossible for you to function properly without it, and I've been saying that for years to the point of complaint.
Because it's tainted, if you, in your view, no doubt.
Well, because the AGs isn't independent.
Right.
Because they're the people who they are always going to fight for is government. Always. Chris has argued this point. They're never going to look at it from our point of view as backbenchers.
Sub judice itself is an incredibly important thing, because it delineates the difference between the parliamentary and executive processes from the judicial. And the only shining light in all of this is the fact that the judicial process has been a shining light. It's acted properly both at the appeals and at the tribunals, and we've got to thank our lucky stars that is the case. So I don't condemn sub judice. I just wish to see it used properly. It's being misused, and there's no excuse, and I've said this before, there's no excuse that sub judice was used as a time when what happened at Abbotswood was being examined by Expol, when what was actually going on there was the concept of sub judice was irresponsibly and incorrectly being used in order to shut discussion down in the public about how awful that situation was. And it was that awful situation that got me into this whole issue in the first place. Utterly unforgivable. It's interesting that the Chief Minister yesterday should want to address the issue of sub judice when he's part of the executive. And you think to yourself, this whole matter is getting really confused. And he said it's sub judice on yesterday, didn't he? And I'm thinking to myself, well, hang on,
yeah. Exactly.
If it's still sub judice, then it means they must still be deliberating on whether they want an appeal.
Correct. I was thinking there's going to be an appeal.
Absolutely.
And
the case remains subject to sub judice. Exactly.
But
and as set out in standing orders.
If they go for the appeal, because as I stand from the legal... I've talked
now,
about
come
it's
on.
over.
Yesterday was an opportunity to say there will be no appeal.
Yeah, he hasn't
that
actually
was
you're right.
Huge.
He hasn't cleared it up, has he? He hasn't actually said.
Hasn't.
No one's actually said we're not going to appeal or we are going to appeal. You know, it's just been left hanging basically.
Well, if there's no appeal, it's closed, and the Chief Minister should have said, well, this is not now subject to sub judice. But he said, well, it is, but I'm going to break it. And
well, I guess from their point of view, they would argue that it has to be both sides would have to say they're not going to appeal for it. I would have thought. So it can't just be one, because so the Ranson side could say they're not going to appeal, but we could abstain from not saying it. It means it's still sub judice.
It's a very good
works
point.
the other way.
It is totally a good point, that. Although, I mean, she could appeal to go for more damages, I suppose.
Could
be that.
do.
Because it's over. She won the case. It's this question now of this
think,
money thing,
I think, I mean, I'm only hazarding a guess. I think the fact that she's made a statement to you, and I think that would indicate she's not looking to appeal. But I don't know. But I think that's pretty.
What do you think of that statement? I find it hard to read.
It was. I mean,
powerful.
There's
a.
It leaves me speechless.
Yeah, I know. It makes me emotional just think about it.
And I said to you, I can see you're getting emotional. Yeah. And I said to you the very next day, I said that it was genuinely the first time I absolutely questioned what I was doing in this political arena with these kind of people that could do that. And genuinely, that was why, spoke with many backbenchers to try and get a motion to do something, because I just felt that this was just so, and the public feel the same. It shouldn't have got to that point. We shouldn't have to hear this. Her family, all of that. It's just awful. And as I say, I don't think I was the only person that questioned that and questioned should they carry on. I really don't. And
no, I know. I referred to it the other day myself, that there were more than you.
And that's not.
I'm hearing it from people.
And genuinely, that's not to for I have to back that up with my constituents put me here, and I'm very very honoured to have that trust.
But did you sign up for this sort of?
I have that trust, but it's very hard to have any trust when you're working with in this environment right
Toxic.
now. It is.
Okay. Back to that profoundly moving statement that Rosalind Ranson made. It dealt with an element of the whole, but certainly not the whole. And what lies beneath all of this was a medical director operating in incredibly difficult circumstances, but doing an absolutely superb job, not just about the COVID issue, whilst the chief executive was parked in the UK, which is what Catherine Magson was. We need to remind ourselves of that. But it was a medical director trying to do her job to make the medical profession the delivery better. And I think it's important to say that tribunal didn't just deal with matters appertaining. It tried to deal with matters appertaining to Rosalind Ranson's employment. The protected disclosures also concerned really, really serious matters, such as serious incidents, or they're called SIs, or never events. Now, a never event is something in hospital which shouldn't ever happen. Like, I mean, to be ridiculous about it, if you're going to have your left leg or your left foot cut off, or cut off your right foot, that should never happen. That's a never event. There were 2 never events in a short time between when Rosalind Ranson arrived and when we got to the situation that later evolved. And Rosalind Ranson's passion is not about herself. It's about wanting to make the health service of the Isle of Man profoundly better. And she had the ability to do it. And she was inhibited and restricted and brushed aside by that. And
can I ask a question? Because I wasn't there when she was first in the briefing room. You would have been during COVID.
I was.
Were you there?
We're still doing it in physical thing.
Was it very reassuring hearing her? Was it?
She looked different to everyone else. She looked like a bit scared in herself. So I mean, because she was looking at data with the potential. Well, we ended up there, didn't we? Because the borders didn't shut. Yeah. And she, I think, was looking at this stuff, and at the same time was dealing with, no doubt, with pressure galore from her senior.
What was the situation she was in at that time? And I'm talking about around about the 13th, 11th of March to the 17th of March. Rosalind Ranson was very much aware that the health service had completely failed to put together a COVID plan. Rosalind was putting the COVID plan together, but she realised the situation was so dire that we had to close the borders to protect the population, to try to keep things going, and not find ourselves in a situation where the hospital was overwhelmed. But up to her arrival, that's the situation we were in. Dire, desperate and awful. And yet, despite all of that, Catherine Magson rode over whatever Rosalind Ranson was trying to do in a professional sense.
Yeah, I think we should make it clear, though.
Now, this should come out in the COVID.
I just want to say that this wasn't Al's watch. That's all. Because we had Howard Quell at the helm then, didn't we? We did, didn't we?
We're talking about a government, whether
I know,
it's
but
this
I think it's important not to shove everything on his watch.
I'm trying to respond to how Rosalind Ranson, I believe, feels in all of this. It's not about her, it's about her passion to deliver a first-class health service and everything that got in the way of it. The machine that just blundered on, that wasn't ready for COVID, hadn't got a plan. She was desperately trying to put it into place and get the borders shut, and she was dismissed and brushed aside. And I'm sorry that Sir Jonathan Michaels isn't coming into the frame over this as well, more than he is. I mean,
do you want to be careful here? Well, you're right. What are we going to say?
No, I'm not going to be careful. It's not a time for being careful. We all know that Rosalind Ranson reached out to Sir Jonathan Michaels in a desperate situation, and he said, "Oh, you can't win, just give up."
No. She also reached out to Dr. Allison. I think she was trying any method to get to somebody who could get into combing with her.
He did try and speak to. I don't know what happened. To David. I think he did try to. To
David, yeah.
Yeah, to say, listen.
Her problem was she couldn't get the information into the room because it had to go via the management structure.
Because David Ashford was doing what Catherine Magson told him to do, without a shadow or doubt, and she was shut out from there. What a desperate situation to find yourself in.
We've covered this many times, but it has to keep on the agenda. That somewhere along the lines, this information that she was going to want to get out to the public was diluted. And it involves, allegedly, appears to be 3 senior civil servants who presumably have no particular medical history themselves or knowledge, but we've asked an FOI about that one to find out. But that, to me, still absolutely stinks. That how on earth can someone else take this important bit of document and they're using the word water it down? I've asked, I mean, again, we should get it eventually to find out what was she trying to say. And there's a video with a graph, and the graph was everything, which has now been so suppressed. I'm asking you and asking about it.
I think there's something important to note here. And we go back to the beginning of our discussions today about this idea about trying to pretend or suggest that this was an isolated issue of import, but it was isolated. And here is the normal, and this is where we're going, and isn't it wonderful? Just got to bear in mind that Kate Brunner KC is to bring out a report next December. Now, my impression about Kate Brunner's work is that she's going to be acerbic, independent, and she's examining an awful lot of things.
It's forensic, for sure.
Forensic, and it's going to open everything up again. And my goodness me,
I like her as well. I met her, and I thought, I think she can do this.
If our government hasn't got their act together and really responded to these things and shown that they've acted properly and in the right way by then, well, God help them. That's what I would say. If I've got Kate Brunner right.
So to declare an interest, I was on the panel that interviewed the KCs for the along with Jane Paul Wilson and
Did you have a nice
Tim
long list
Glover.
of people? Or was it like just a short list of
No. There was a great deal. Well, I say a great deal, but very, very, very high caliber KCs all came forward.
But she stood out.
Lords,
I mean, I don't want to push you on things that may be confidential.
She. Do you know when we spoke about this just earlier about having a certain level of humility? She was somebody, and I don't think I was speaking out of term, that I felt would have humility speaking to people in these scenarios, because there was some people were really affected by what happened and people died. You had to have somebody that would have that empathy and that humility. That was really important. But she had absolutely the credentials. So from that perspective, I've had my interview with her myself, and she asked the right questions. I was very, very open with everything that I could possibly give. And remember, I came into this in August 20.
Is it on the record? You have that choice, don't you? To be
you do, and I was
off
happy for anything I gave
Right.
in that sense, to be open, because I think it's the only way we'll...
You,
and this comes back to it. If we're not open and we're not transparent and say, actually, these things happened, you can only admit it. It's what you say. If you admit that these things happened, then you can actually
it gets me in a lot of trouble. If someone asks me a question, I'll
you can
answer
actually
it.
change and make it for the better.
Yeah.
I want that to
So
be.
taking these two parts together, I would implore Alf to think again and to consider what's happened over the last 2 days. And ask himself, is he on the right track? Because I'm saying to him, I don't think you are.
Okay. Well, let's move this on, because we have Tynwald next week. So besides that,
So
are you firing? I mean,
right. So you'd be interested to know. I do have another question. Actually, I laid this question down the week prior, so to keep the pressure on. But so really, what's important is so I have a supplementary order paper, which is supplementary order paper 2. That's right, isn't it?
Explain what that means.
It's number 2. So basically, we have an order paper, and you can obviously that gets with the order of business, register of business. It has to be on there for 6 weeks, but the president can allow a supplementary order paper for extenuating circumstances. And so my select committee on the handling of the Ranson litigation is there. So we know that the Chief Minister is going to bring something. We don't know whether that's a supplementary order paper 2, 3. Which means you will hear mine first, then his. And if that's the case, then that's not very nice, Chief Minister, because, and I'm saying it openly because I want that to be known.
Yeah.
If mine gets heard first, well, that for me, as I said before, is the safety net. We need to hear his first.
You can't react to.
So how he can put his in, either he can amend mine with whatever he wants, or I believe he can ask the president, you might be able to correct me, for some exceptional circumstances to hear before the questions and everything like that. So we have to hear the Chief Ministers first. I hope we get that opportunity. If we don't, my options would be to remove this, because if I don't remove it, then I can't place it again for 6 months. So if I remove it, then at least I could bring it back in June, and we can vote down theirs if it's not up to access all areas. In terms of a question I mentioned before, I also have a question laid for the Chief Minister, actually, which basically addresses a bit of what he said in here, but it was very much, you made a statement on the 17th of May last year, what have you done? And that will give us another opportunity to actually drill down into this. And that doesn't mean we're not forgetting what has happened, but actually we have to work in tandem with that. We have to make sure that the necessary things are happening, and we have to make sure that it's looked into so it doesn't happen
again.
again.
Will it only be you, a little bit from Tim Glover and Jason Morehouse and Mr. Warrenberg maybe? Is that what you reckon the only people that are going to make some questions to the Chief?
I think there's a lot more backbenchers that are asking more questions. I know that Daphne asked questions. I know that Anne unfortunately wasn't there, but I know Anne will probably ask more questions. So I think there's certainly a lot more now.
So the mood music is, we want answers. You mean you're going in there with determination to listen carefully to what he says, but then try and work out what he actually means by what he's saying.
We should be working to make sure that what they bring is enough. And hopefully it will be. But there are details. There are really important details. As I said, who chooses that person? If Alf turns around and says it's going to be the Council of Ministers, that's not independent. That's not, that
you couldn't hear that. I mean, mind you, nothing's
But
out.
they're going down a journey where they're speaking to members in Parliament, which is not got humility. I mean, anything is possible right now.
That is the weirdest thing. We're in this, this place which anything is possible. Amazing.
And as I say, our door is absolutely open. My door, it's my motion. It's my door's open for him to discuss that with me. I will approach him if I don't hear anything by the end of Thursday. Presumably he'll meet with the Council of Ministers tomorrow. I know that other members are planning to write to the Chief Minister about what their expectations are, and some already have. And we
heard the BMA are over and they're doing media. I mean, that will be an interesting input to hear what they say, how you can go forward with this. They must have...
It's not just BMA, it's the President of the BMA who's coming over personally. As I say, I'll repeat it because I think it's very important from my perspective to say this, that I've wanted the Chief Minister to succeed, to deal with this, and I still do. But right now I'm getting incredibly nervous and deeply concerned about the progressive direction of travel which the indicators are now saying we're going in. And I caution senior officers as well that they cannot offer the sort of advice that suggests that, well, we'll just get over this and we'll encourage people to think much more lightheartedly and it'll all be history.
So this brings me, probably near the end of our session, to my FOI asking for the Expol terms and conditions, whatever you want to call it. And in other words, what were you asked to do? Now, this is a very simple document, if it does exist. I mean, it could be verbal, but let's don't go down that route.
Oh, hang on a second. Wait a minute.
Don't become sarcastic.
But if it can be verbal, and they've spent £68,000, do you think it should be? Am
I wrong in thinking, Claire? I talked to you long time, that this should be so simple? No, I mean, literally.
No, in terms of reference,
and therefore I should come
absolutely
straight back. It could have been done within a day. Now, I'm the one that's always being held right back. And then they come to me and say, we can't give it to you now, we need more time, and some of it may not be given anyway. I mean, so I'm down the media rounds. I become the story on this one, which is not what I'm meant to be. I'm meant to be independent, but I couldn't believe it when I saw that. I mean, don't get me wrong, I was expecting it, because nothing like this is going to be sorted out easy. But my point is, what sort of culture is going on now after the Chief Minister? You see, I'm getting myself all worked up on it. After him saying we're going to have a new look, what possesses them to think they can't tell us, the public, how £68,000 was?
If trust is down here, rock bottom, just refusing your FOI is just put it down into hell.
Yeah.
The trust is down here because it genuinely, you're right. What is wrong? What is it that's in there that is clearly
there's a massive problem.
Something?
It's got to be, because otherwise it's being released. If it was just simply go and find out what happened, there's
But
everything's
also,
sorted out.
Also, the other side of it, if there isn't anything,
Okay.
what an embarrassment.
Just remind me, we're talking about the concocted documents allegedly. I think maybe you should definitely do that because Expol came out with there was a human error or two,
apart from
nothing to worry about.
Apart from anything else, the terms of reference should have been attached to the report, submitted to the tribunal for the tribunal to consider its view on that. But and if there are elements that were difficult for them to respond under the FOI out with or outside the terms of reference for the Expol report, they could have split the two off, given you the first part straight away and said, well, we've got a problem with this and we'll come back to it.
Also,
they didn't.
Just to remind you also, Paul, you haven't had a full response
there's
to your FOI with the
Second
appeal. You've only had part of that as well. And
so someone contacted me this morning, they put in an FOI to find out why my FOIs are the only ones that seem to take longer than anybody else's. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, can you? I mean, they must be bombarded. And I've also done another one, which is hugely legal.
You should put a subject access request in for your name. See what comes up there.
I've done a hugely legal one to 3 different departments because, again, I'm going on people. People use me as a conduit, and that's great. And once more, I have to make this clear. I'm a single individual person. I'm no big news organisation, and I appreciate everyone that's been contacting me with other stories, but I can't deal with it at the minute. I mean, this is in itself quite disturbing.
What's the other one you've put in with regard to the 3 departments? Is it too complicated?
It's long and
okay.
Because I'm writing it. I'm not writing it. It's written in lawyer terms because you have to give no wriggle room, otherwise they won't answer it. You with me?
And I just want to pick up on also this fact that you're being contacted. I know I'm being contacted by whistleblowers,
yes.
And the cover up, this trust that's down there, it's actually damaging the whistleblowing process, and that's huge. That means people will feel frightened. They'll look at this and they'll go, well, I haven't got the BMA behind me. What's the point?
Exactly.
And that's what's really, really, really awful, because if you don't have that weight, you don't have those kind of lawyers, we're not in an organisation where we're morally actually making these decisions. Did we do wrong? Are we able to look at ourselves and say, we've actually treated this person really badly and we should do what's right? If we're not able to do that, which we clearly aren't.
Yeah. Well, he says he's going to make it easier.
Then
he did say that, didn't he?
The whistleblowing process.
He's going to make it easier, he said the other day, didn't he?
Well, yes, but how?
Well, I know. I was going to ask you that. How do you make it easier?
There's a difference between, and we've said this before, there's a difference between words and action. We've had a lot of words. I mean, and now the words are beginning to be misaligned, as we've already discussed. But we've yet to see real action.
Well,
I am
once again
hugely
how they cannot just tell me, the public, what were the terms of engaging Expol? What was it that is in there that they daren't or are trying to withhold? I mean, this is going to, again, terribly badly managed, really poorly managed. Whoever is giving advice to these people, I wouldn't want them doing my PR, that's for sure, because even if it's bad, let's get it out there. Because this is the time to dump the stuff now, because then he can draw his line. But by dragging it out now for another 14 odd days, plus then redacting something, which then makes it nonsensical because you don't know the full term. I mean, that's all they can do. I'm literally asking for a piece of paper with about, I don't know, it could be pages worth, but whatever.
I mean, we could actually be sitting here, with a situation where by the what do you call it, the money when it's been appointed, the 3.2 million, I can't remember the word, the
damages or
the damages, when the
remedy
award had happened, we could be sitting here with this 42 days or 6 weeks, whatever it is, of sub judice, not discussing this, and rearing its head in 6 weeks' time. And actually, that's why it's important to get these things done, because even if sub judice does apply, having that in place so that when it falls away properly, we can step in and absolutely make things happen.
Yeah, £68,000 probably that's nothing in this whole thing anyway. But that's just one that's bugging me.
But yeah, absolutely. And
we are being treated as if we have no right to know.
Let's go back to the deflection that happened this morning. That was exactly what we shouldn't be looking at the appeals, and it's complete deflection of, and yes, it is part of it, but it all constitutes the bad culture.
This is not the time to draw a line under it. That's for sure.
Exactly. Because
that's what the mood music sounded like to me this morning and yesterday. Let's move on and put this behind us, but they can't, because Abbotswood, people died, and that is a criminal offence if someone acted in a way that they should have done. And then that would all be sub judice and we won't be able to talk about it. And I totally get it. But that's how serious. And then next to that, concocting documents is also huge. If you manipulate things for your own advantage, someone went to jail only a few months ago for that, and it was much smaller thing. We are dealing with things here that need answers. And I can't believe I'm hearing myself saying this so passionately. And so, come on. Get this sorted. This is your chance to do it now. Then we'll move on.
Well, they're running out of time. I mean, it's drifted the last couple of days the wrong direction, which is why I'm now saying the things I am. Yeah. More in a more determined fashion than perhaps I have in the past. It's a caution. If they don't take it, this is just going to drift further and further into a bad place.
On this, and I'm going to set you up for. I don't want you to go on for half an hour, but should the AG, for instance, be considering positions? Should any other people be considering, I'm talking about parliamentarians now as well, considering their positions?
Well, I've already said what I
have. I don't want to wind up too much, but you still agree with what you said before?
Yeah, absolutely.
What about you then? Anyone needs to fall on their sword, do you think?
I think it's awful because obviously, I'm conflicted. I work with these people. So, whatever I say, no one will, trust me right now, and that's a pretty awful place to be in as a politician.
I can't believe you just said that.
It's true.
I mean, to hear you say that,
it's just awful because it doesn't matter what I say. No one's going to trust. And it's not the right climate to be. It's just horrible.
Are you feeling isolated?
Yes, hugely, but I think you can do if you speak out anyway. And you're a sort of singular voice, at times, of course you're going to feel, but that you have to, because people will join you and momentum will happen. But so should people, I'm not going to sit here and ever say, and you won't ever as long as I'm a politician, I won't ever say someone should hand in the resignation, because unless I actually physically saw the facts, and I don't have those facts in front of me. But the point is I would hope, and you know what, here you go, I'm saying this, I would hope that if I was in that situation, that I would do the right thing and say, my involvement in this is incorrect, and I need that to be investigated, and while it's being done, I'm going to step aside. And actually, to David Ashford's credit, he did step down as a minister on the basis that he didn't want the government's credibility.
News, of course. He can
exactly.
Always ask him what's
and didn't want the good work of the government to be affected. And actually, but that's all still hearsay. We still don't know what he did, whether he did it, things like that. He still needs that moment where he can discuss that. But it was the right thing, and I hope that ultimately, the chief minister should never have apologised if he was involved in anything, because it means nothing. If he is, I hope, because he did apologise, he isn't conflicted or he hasn't been involved in wrongdoings. I hope that would give some.
Okay, final thoughts? You going to say anything?
No.
Okay, I'm going to end it. I've got 4 words, well, they're your words, which brings us to a close today. I think it's 4. Do the right thing. Is that 4? Yeah. 4 words. That sums up everything. And we could all go and have holidays and just relax.
Well, £3.2 million would still be in.
Oh, no, that's the
treasury.
The 700,
that's a lot of nurses pay.
£700,000 costs, and there are other costs on. So the cost of this is 4 to 5 million.
5 million,
and somewhere.
And I have to say this, just as a final note. Yeah. Now, every time we say something in Tynwald, politicians, when you're speaking to a constituent, I'm really sorry, we haven't got the money to do that. Yeah. Well, you just faced with, you've just spent that much money on
And they
that.
hadn't even talked about Liverpool landing stage or the prom or anything, which more
And
money
that,
that was.
Don't get me going.
I know.
What a time.
Listen, thank you so much,
Thank you,
Claire.
Paul. Thank you. I know. So you can
Don't
cut
send me
this
off.
bit out,
Don't send me off.
but genuinely, and I know you've been a big part of this. But thank you for everything that you have done, because it's. I know that you have stepped up, and that means a lot to people.
Okay. Bye.